Hello everyone, and welcome back to Courageous Conversations, Awakening Souls, Real Talk. It's my little platform where we discuss the healing journey from an authentic perspective. So people who are, open, connecting with me because of my raw honesty and the way that I work with people. Also, just because it's just a really important conversation that needs to be had right now with as we go through these huge shifts. So as we go through this really transformative time and the awakening, a lot of people are recognizing and realizing that they need to they're being drawn to step into this pathway. So on that note, I want to welcome one of my younger clients, Rhegi Randall, who is only 20, turning 21 soon. So yeah, introduce yourself, a little blurb about you, Rhegi.
Okay. I'm Regan. I'm 20 years old. I'm currently a student at the University of Bristol in England. And I met Simone a few months ago now, and we had our first session probably last November. And I've had a few since then, and it's just been a great journey that I started with her. Yeah.
Yay, awesome. So what I want to talk to you is because you are my first person on this chat that's, young, one of our young people, you're 20, turning 21. So, I want to ask you, what do you think with all that's going on in the world now, what we've been through over the last few years, and what's happening, I don't know, just in economies, everything, the world, what are some of the, main challenges facing young people these days? How does
Gosh, I think
Hmm.
the main one is probably social media. I think that's definitely a big thing that is kind of hard to detach yourself from. I mean, there's definitely a few benefits from it, but for me at least, it's so easy to get wrapped into it and just lose all sense of what the world is really like,
Mhm.
um, to lose sense of yourself and any kind of individuality. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, I think that's probably the biggest thing that most people are facing right now. Everyone's now online, which I mean is good in some ways, but yeah, no one really has a grasp of what's really going on anymore. Yeah.
So there's this distraction
Yeah.
element of social media that is, if I can speak to that, it's targeting young people because your developmental years, it's been
Mhm.
around. Whereas for
Yeah.
mine, well into my 40s, just quietly, it has not been. It has not been. I think I got a cell phone at 30. I don't even know. And
Yeah.
it was one of those flip top things or whatever. We didn't have all that access to the Instagrams or whatever. We didn't have that. So what I'm sensing is that the discernment to uncover and find out who you really are has been lost for young people.
Yeah.
In a world that is, presenting itself in a way that's almost fake. If you look at that layer, the 3D
Yeah.
layer. Yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. Mm, interesting. So, what nudged you to choose this healing pathway? What nudged you?
Mhm. I think I was definitely in a time where I needed more direction. I'd just gone through a breakup. Um, and I was looking for something to kind of push me in the right way and almost give me some validation that what I was doing was the right thing. Um, and I mean, I'd spoken to you before about what your work was and what you had done. And it was such a welcoming environment that I felt it would have just been a good experience either way. So yeah, I felt it was the right thing to do, as just to say I've done it and to see if it was going to work. But
Mm.
yeah.
And obviously we have worked together a little bit now, and um, you know, what how has the work helped you? Like talk to maybe some details of how it's what it's opened up. If you go back to the first session and sort of watch the progression, how it's opened up or shifted the way that you're behaving or living life,
Gosh, yeah.
stuff.
Anyways,
It's a big question, sorry.
I think the main thing is probably more self-reassurance. To think I have more confidence in what I'm doing and I trust myself more. Definitely, I feel more protected, and not through external factors, but just within myself.
Mm.
Um, yeah, but I feel like my whole outlook on things is just completely different now as well.
Mm.
Um,
Talk to that. Talk to that. Yeah.
I think just maybe that I'm working in a direction towards things almost. But
Yeah.
before I was just so lost. And now I feel like everything I'm doing, every little thing is adding towards something meaningful. Uh,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, I
Yeah.
like
I
that.
feel it's very difficult to kind of judge because I'm still obviously in the process.
Yeah.
But
And it's
looking back to when I first started, I feel like I've definitely gone a long way.
Oh, I know you have. That's not that long ago. We're only in
Yeah.
May, beginning of May.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because I remember when, if we can talk to some of these personal experiences, obviously went through the breakup and I remember there was stuff going on in the household, in the university, on the, and there
Mhm.
was, things that were really like, I got the impression swallowing you up,
Yeah.
almost swallowing you up. And this beautiful, loving soul inside you was just going, like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. So dampened.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and since then, I feel like a combination of things. I think that the pivotal point was sure the breakup and that, but I think there was a pivotal point around what was going on with your friendships too, and
Yeah.
how I want you to speak to, because what tends to happen with this work, with all of us, but especially I think because you're young and you're formulating life, right? You're talking about direction and meaningful steps you're taking, which is beautifully said. But I want to look at how you're starting to discern and see who are real friends or real solid people in your life and who are not. Like, speak to that a little bit, how that's changed.
I mean, I think before I always kind of felt like I had an intuition about people,
Mhm.
um, but I never listened to it.
Mhm.
And since that and since my first session, I just trust my gut a lot more. I think that I can judge a situation. I can step back and look at it without getting too sucked into it,
Mm.
and I
Power.
just listen to myself a lot more. Yeah,
Powerful, because you know what you're listening to now. You're finding
yeah,
yourself, and I think what's really interesting is there's some interesting things that happened within our sessions, and obviously they're private, we're not going to go into the detail of them, but I remember our first session. I do
yeah,
remember it really clearly. And just speaking to the audience, Rhegi, I call you, opened up like just incredibly. You get different clients who, you've not done this sort of work before, really, have you? Some people
no,
have done lots of different types of things, but because you were like a blank slate and you opened up so readily, and we went to places. So this is what I want to explain to people. First session, we
yeah,
went there. We were dealing with ancestors, and obviously Reagan has a mixed, mum is Irish English, dad, they grew up in England. Dad is Maori. So dad is Maori from up north, far north in New Zealand. So Rhegi has I've got goosebumps just saying this, because you've got a link, but there was some things that needed to be opened up with the ancestry. There wasn't that there were the pathways, those really necessary earthy pathways from your lineage on your father's side. We just needed to tap into some of those, and I've got goosebumps feeling that. And I feel like that has helped with some of the grounding too.
mhm,
Some of
yeah,
you recognizing that part of yourself even more, because I don't even know how much you've been to New Zealand, but I know that you didn't have a really big link, right?
yeah, yeah. No,
So, sorry.
it was definitely something that it's opened up more interest and made me want to explore it a lot more. But yeah, I didn't really have any link to it almost.
Mhm.
And the topics that we spoke about in that first session, it made so much sense after.
Is
Yeah,
it? Mm.
it
Is
just
it
gave a
interesting?
whole new perspective on it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it, how it works? And
Mhm.
how these different ancestors drop in. I remember an ancestor dropped in, I won't talk in detail, but and how poignant the guidance and the messaging is.
Yeah.
I mean, you had all sorts of homework after that session, I remember.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. All right. So what I want to ask you now is, how do you think for young people, because you talked about social media, because you talked about how this is interfering with it's interfering with the pathways of the brain so that
Hmm.
people can't discern truth. They also can't discern who's giving them good advice or who's genuine. I get this problem in my work, until people have got to a certain stage, discerning that I'm actually a real healer, a real facilitator. I'm not here spinning stuff on social media that's all just, I'm just jumping on a bandwagon and it's spiritual fluff and it's false light matrix. I go direct to source. I do the work and my clients have results. And so how can a young person discern between someone who is genuinely offering a service? Obviously there's looking into the history and going, what have they studied and all that, but also it's tricky. It's like who's done the work to get to the point where they can help you, or
Yeah,
all this fluff like la 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 and all these sayings, and then people get online and they think that that's the work because they've looked at a few and liked a few posts and they think, oh yeah, I'm embodied now. You're
yeah.
not. You've read a little quote, that's not your own personal work. How would you say for people your age, how do they discern that? I don't know, tricky question,
I
but
think, yeah, I think the biggest thing is probably to open up as soon as possible, just and also to put yourself in the situation and make it a personal experience. Like with you, um, you can read all these things online, but it never really hits you until you've actually spoken through it and put yourself in the experiences and talked about it. Um, but yeah, it is very superficial. It's very surface level. You can put yourself in that and think, oh, I'm part of this. I believe in this as well. But until you're relating those experiences to yourself,
Mhm,
and especially when it goes back to healing from the DNA level and talking to your ancestors, talking about your ancestors,
mhm, mhm.
it's never going to be on the same level.
No,
It's
no.
a difficult one.
Mm.
It's easy to fall into that trap of thinking,
Yeah.
you're so woke and
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
like spiritual from reading all these things on Instagram, say.
Yes.
But yeah, it's until you've put yourself in that position and
Hmm.
you've spoken through these things that I think
Hmm.
you'll never realize that. And you can only tell people that because they can only do so much as what they want to do. But yeah, it's difficult. You kind of need to get out of that cycle as soon as possible to realize that. Otherwise, you're just going to have this fake ideology.
Yeah, yeah. Fake
Mhm.
ideology. Well
Yeah,
said. Yeah, and a slight gurification. Unfortunately, that's been distorted, but we've had a lot of this guru situation where yes, there are people that are, excuse me, have a drink of water, that are wiser and that are but discerning that. And also what people will tend to do is jump on a bandwagon. They see, oh, this person's getting this clout on Instagram and they talk about all this. Well, there's an agenda driving that. They
yeah,
own the social media platform, the people, I talk about in my work, the beings that have infiltrated, they own these platforms. So
yeah,
they will promote something that doesn't go too deep, right?
yeah, yeah. So
Because that's what they want. That's where
yeah,
they want their people to be, stuck in the false light matrix, which is a layer. We've got the false light, we've got all that, and we've got source. So that's the tricky part. So I think as we go through this awakening, as we are hit with more light codes, more energetics that are profoundly moving people, I'm noticing that I'm being found a little bit more because
hmm,
they're sort of going like this and they're like, oh, I'm feel if they know me, if they study, it's this authenticity's coming through. And
yeah,
I feel like that's a shift that is well needed. Like I think that's something that is changing. But the more young people, see, I love working with young people as well, people between the ages of, like my daughter, 17 or younger if wanted, through to like the 25, because I think you guys are the future of the planet and we need you, and we
yeah,
need you to blossom and thrive in this
yeah,
new light. So it's hugely important to me and I'm hugely passionate about it. And that's why as well, I want to interview some people I work with that are young. So
yeah.
I have one or two last questions. So what would you say to someone who's sitting on the fence and afraid to step into their own inner work because it's an inside job? What would you say to them?
Um, Gosh, I don't know. I think maybe going into it kind of naive would be the best way. Just, just don't go in with too many expectations, but have an open mind completely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think that like, with the social media thing, it's so difficult. You can go in and you kind of think you're going to walk out of it like this in this ideology, that you have this
Mhm.
image in your head of what
Mhm.
awakening would look like.
Mhm.
But I think staying kind of naive and on that no, expectation mindset is the
Mhm.
best way to look at it
Lovely.
because it does hit deep and it's definitely not what you would imagine it to look like, but it's true. And you kind of see the impacts of it and the benefits of it
Mhm.
throughout in little ways that you wouldn't think. And then it,
Mhm.
it hits you and it's like, oh, I've acted
Mm.
differently in this situation and that's why.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think just going into it with a completely open mind and just
Awesome.
feeling comfortable, and you offer such a warm environment for that. There's no
Thank you.
judgment and
No.
it's just pure honesty. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Pure honesty is everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so beautifully said. Thank you. And I love your perspective. I love your perspective. It's like, yeah, just go in as a clean slate. It's not what you think, and it's not always easy.
No.
It's like there are painful moments when we face our wounds and our traumas and our stuff. It's painful too. But
Yeah.
this work is gentle, and anyone can do it. I mean, if you've got a willingness, right,
Yeah, that's the thing.
then you can do it, you
Hmm.
know? Cool.
Yeah. No, it's
Oh,
definitely.
lovely. Lovely. Is there anything else you want to say? If there's anything else you want to say to anyone out there that is thinking about being a courageous healer, because really it is courageous to step into your healing like you have. If there's anything else you want to say, if not, that's fine. We will wrap it up. But if there is, just feel free to speak now.
um I think the main thing is just, yeah, just be willing to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's it. Be
that's
willing
all.
to do it. Love it. Just go there. Stop making a
Hmm.
big story around it. Stop wrapping all the stuff around it.
Yeah.
We can overthink in the West, can't we? Especially in the West. And I think that's what I've learned living here in Dalma in Croatia is that this, like, it's a different way of being, and it exists at a more primal level. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I like it. I
Yeah,
like
for
it a
sure.
lot.
Just take it slow, but be
Yeah.
open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
take it slow. Good.
Mhm.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Rhegi, for sharing yourself and for sharing your time with our
Thank you.
audience, with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, I shall say goodbye to the recording now. So thank you everyone for joining us, and I will hit stop. Hang on. Let's cancel that. One moment, caller. Let's just hit stop. Stop.